prayer.
Now, in these cases, we just do
I'm going to call to order the May 5th, 2014 meeting of East Ascension Drainage. Madam Secretary, please note that Councilman Turner, Councilman Lohr, and Councilman Melanson are absent. Would everyone please stand for the invocation given by Councilman Johnson? Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for the opportunity to gather together tonight. Give us wisdom to make good decisions for our parish. Thank you for the recent protection from the storms that passed through the area. Prayers for the families of those affected in other states and communities by those same storms. Special intentions tonight for the J.P. Myers family for the loss of his grandson. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Benny. The chair would now accept the motion for the acceptance of the minutes of the April 7th meeting.
So moved.
We have a motion by Ms. Cazzo.
Second.
Second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. We move on to agenda item number 5, Chairman's report. I'm going to keep it short based on the fact that I think that everybody, Mr. Rue's going to have a pretty comprehensive update on all our projects. And I know I'd asked everybody a couple months ago, we'd take a look at projects going forward. And I know the administration's been doing a lot of work, working with the PLD, and we squared up everything that we got going forward with timelines and expectations. So at this time, I'd like to move on to agenda item number 6, Mr. Rue, drainage report.
Okay, we're going to go through, I promised at the last meeting I'd go through a schedule of the projects and give you something to look at. Starting with Henderson Bayou flood project, floodgate. We had about 80% complete. The main issue over there is the levee, connection levee coming from the west side. It looks like that Cajun will be assessed and liquidated damages on this project. We don't know. We're still negotiating. We're going to be coming with change order number 7. It's going to account for some of this. But they have hit their, just about hit their limit for completion date. And we will be negotiating liquidated damages with them. So I just want to make everybody aware of that. The Muddy Creek drainage improvements, which is the FEMA grant, right now we're about 22% complete. Feasibility and survey study was completed, it's 100%, and we're about 5% complete with environmental permitting. And if you follow it on down, we've got anticipated dates to complete that project, and again, we'll be issuing updates as we get further along with it. Conway Bayou Panama Canal, with 36% complete with that project, and that's 36% complete with the Conway and 36% complete with Bayou with Panama. Frog Bayou Bluff Swamp restoration. Right now, we're about 15% complete with environmental permitting, and we haven't started on the other portions of it yet. The main issue is to get through the permitting process, because that's going to dictate a lot of the actual construction of the design of the project. Also, we are working with a memorandum of understanding and also an intergovernmental agreement with PLD, Punch Lane Levee District, for the participation of that project. And that's going to dictate the cost and the timeline on some of it also. So as soon as we complete some of this, we'll bring it back, bring it back to the commission and report on how much cost share we will participate with PLD on, and how it'll break down. And at the same time, I give a better estimate of time for that. Again, we're still looking at a total reconstruction of the ditch along Ridge Road, redefining the Frog Bayou from Bridge Road to the locks and expanding the locks at Alligator Bayou Road. So that's basically the project. And again, the final design is going to be based somewhat on the permit. The Marvin Borough Pump Station upgrade, and that's upgrading, that's cofferdam each, damming off each pump and going in and inspecting and renovating what's needed. And that's about a 5 or 6 year project. Right now, we are in the contract phase, and we should have that complete by the next meeting, and I'll come back and discuss that with you at that time. Law Ridge Levee Extension. Right now, we're about 20%, about 90% finished with the preliminary design, environmental and JD permitting mitigation, about 10%. They've started work on locating property owners, and we will be entering into negotiation with the landowners on purchasing the property. We also found some dirt that we're able to buy. We'll be entering into a contract with the owner of that property. We already have one. We're going to extend that contract, and that's part of the upgrade of the old levee. We contracted with the landowner, went through the process of purchasing some of that dirt. And we're just going to extend that to handle all of the levee. The major canal improvement program, the Grain Goudin, right now is about 25% overall, 60% finished with environmental permitting. We have permission to start the upper region of the Bayou Goudin forest, cleaning the bottom out and reestablishing the bank line. We will be rip-wrapping the major portion, the upper region of the Goudin, especially from Southwood Village to Highway 73. And to do that, we have to get another permit to place the rip-wrap. We're in the process of getting that permit now. But we will be starting that project forest excavation and within the next probably 30 days. Bird Island Ditch. Right now, environmental permitting is about 50% complete. We already have the design. We're ready to start that project as soon as we get the permit, and that is to complete that project from Bird Island Road to Black Bayou, and also replace all the bridges that we had to widen around. We skipped those bridges. We have to go back and replace the bridges and open up the channel at those locations. Bayou Francois lateral number 1 at Papera Road. That's at Pecan Grove. And we're about 50% complete permitting on that. And that's that 2-tier drainage system. We'll be filling in the banks along both sides, lessening the ditch itself, and have an overflow structure. If in case you get enough rain or backup water, we'll have containment of that water within the system, but it won't be a large so-called bayou. It'll just be a regular ditch at the bottom in most cases. Master drainage plan, right now we outline an organization. I'm about 50% complete with that. And it's 10% completion with the collection part of it. That's going to take a little while. I'm doing a little bit at a time. It's a year-long process, and I'll probably be complete by next year. The levee, the project, certification project, right now the RFQ process will probably begin within another week for the advertising. So we're about 20% complete with the RFQ process. And that's a pretty good, all I have for is accounting, pretty good accounting of all our projects to date. And I can answer any questions that you may have.
Yeah, Bill, did you mention Boyle Bayou?
Oh, I skipped over Boyle. Right now, we, I think we're 8%. Now, again, it's the environmental permitting is about 13% complete, and that's a long process on that basin because of all the wetlands involved. The environmental permitting is a major portion of that project.
Yes, sir, Mr. Shake Snyder.
Yeah, Bill, on Ball Bayou, what does that include?
Well, we're going back, and GSA actually did a study on it a number of years ago. We're going back and we're looking at using a portion, if not a major portion, if not all of that analysis. Mainly has to do with some retention basins, retention areas, which is purchasing a lot of property to store the water. One thing is, we don't know if it's going to go far, but the city is planning a a dog park, behind Southwood subdivision. And they're going to be digging a large pond, part of that project. And we're going to participate in that project by digging the pond, but we're going to have it designed in such a way that it can be somewhat of a retention basin, both for Southwood and for the lower end of Borough Bayou, part of the whole system. So we waiting for a little bit more word from, I think Quality Engineering is doing it for the city. And we're going to get more information with them, but when they design it, we're going to try to design enough freeboard in it to act as a retention. We also want to put further up another retention area to collect the water and keep it from the lower end.
Okay, so you're trying to do some collection areas to keep it from going down the Panama Conway till we can get
Exactly.
that dug out?
Yes, we're trying to form collection areas in that system. The way GSA, their analysis showed, and I agree with it, is that area is so flat that you really, and you really can't dig the ditch big enough to contain a 10-year or 25-year storm. The only way you really can handle the drainage in there is to handle it through some retention areas.
Okay,
And
so
so that's what we're looking forward to.
I see according to this, the Panama Conway dredging out is not included in any of the major projects from 2014 to 2022.
Nope, not at this time.
Okay. What do we have to do to get that included?
The first thing is to, and be honest with you, we want to have the channel cleared of all debris. And we want to see what kind of benefits that affords us. And at the same time, we're going to be doing spot cleaning at all the railroads and the crossings, and we want to see what kind of benefit that causes.
So there's no plans on adding this?
Not at this time until we see a benefit, see the benefit and analyze the benefit costs after the snagging and clearing.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, and let's be perfectly honest, the cost benefit of dredging that thing is, we're looking at millions and millions of dollars to dredge it. If you go with a full dredging project, the fact of the matter is, this is similar to dredging New River. This is a fully canopied drainage area. Even to get it permitted, it can be extremely difficult. To get it permitted and dredged, you have to open it up, you have to clear the banks to do a proper dredging of it.
Yeah,
And you're looking at millions and millions of dollars to do
Yeah.
that.
well, we've been through this project from top to bottom about 30 times and up and down there. And it's always been understood about those crossings on the airline highway and the railroad. Pretty obvious they need to be cleaned out for any type of drainage to occur. And it just amazes me that this is not on anything that goes up to 2022, when we talked about as that was part 2 of the project that we have right now. So, I mean, this is something we need to talk about.
I can discuss that with you individually,
yes.
privately, and we discussed it once before, and it's something that I really don't want to discuss in public right now.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. I guess looking at this, and I know we had some other things in the work that we talked about that, as we progress with the Henderson Bayou coming online, the Lorridge levee moving forward all the way to the point where it's going, coming back down low, that we're going to turn our focus towards looking toward that whole Sorrento Basin to close in lieu of the West Shore project that, I don't know if I'll be alive when that comes around, and it's not scheduled to connect with Ascension Parish, but to help the people in the lower Sorrento area, all that whole Sorrento Basin, Touye Road, and all back down to the coffee house and all.
The main, and it's something we discussed, Chairman, the main problem that we have is a Isaac effect, a surge from something similar to
That's
Isaac.
where we've experienced the bad problem.
That is a problem. A normal rainfall usually don't have a major problem. A backwater flooding, river is not, usually doesn't cause a major problem. The major problem occurs with a major surge like we experienced with Isaac. And so our plans is to provide a protecting system that will protect that entire area from a surge similar to or worse than Isaac.
Okay. But I'm going to say that basically a project like that, it's going to be quite costly, but it'll help in about 2 or 3 of the areas that we're already fighting right now, the
If-
small areas.
If our plans go through, again, we had need participation, and it's something that we will approach PLD with. But if the plans go through, we'll have total protection from Highway 70 to Port Vincent.
Okay. Good deal.
One quick
Yes, Mr. Todd Lambert.
Bill, I'm looking at all these projects, and I see some fairly, I guess, new on the table. I'm just, to my point, you know, when we talked about taking the three mil property tax away from the drainage and moving it somewhere, that we had a surplus. To me, with all these projects unfinished, I don't see us with a surplus out there right now.
This, now.
Because I see a lot of projects that
it-
we're getting on now that wasn't really on the major project list.
There's several issues with that, at least some things you need to remember. Number one is a lot of these projects are already funded by the bond that we still have money
Some of them
left.
are, yeah.
I mean, it's earmarked through the bond. A lot of the projects are funded, the major portion of the projects are funded through our annual operational costs, which is fixed.
Correct.
So in other words, if I have my men right now working a small ditch, we're going to have a major crew working the Goudin, major crew working some of the other projects. And so that's already fixed in our operational budget. It doesn't cost us any more than what it's costing me right now. So when you factor that in, it costs a lot of money if you put it on paper. But again, it's not money over and above what's already budgeted.
Okay.
Not a lot of it is.
Not a lot.
The stuff you have to buy, say like the locks at Frog Bayou and stuff like this. But we could be doing most of the work within the Frog Bayou and Bridge Road. It could be done operationally through our major construction group that's already funded.
Yeah. That's all I got, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And, you know, Todd, when that was coming up, that was a great presentation that the administration put on about where we at with the money in Ascension drainage. And, you know, the comment was made that we're flush, but we do have a lot of work to do. That's a dang good point. While we talked about several things that we talked about participation by the PLD, I think that throughout the years, we've had several council members that, you know, whether it never came to surface or not, but the amount of money that we do contribute to the Punch Train Levy District within Ascension Parish. So, you know, basically in 2013, we was looking at 3.4 million. It's our contribution. We project the way the growth is going with our millage, and I think it's 3.4 mils that we're looking at. It's going to roll up to 4 million a year is our contribution toward the Punch Train Levy District. All right, and so I'm giving you roundabout numbers because I don't want to say the exact one because I don't know it right now. So, you know, we do have some very, very strong contingency for the administration and everybody to work with the PLD, and let's see about rolling some of that, guaranteeing some of the things on our coming back into Ascension Parish.
Andy,
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that, is there still some cooperation between the administration, the drainage, and the PLD on Frog Bayou and?
What we're doing right now, President Martin has actually went to the legislature and talked to our senators there and the PLD representatives. Came back, he tasked myself and our counsel, Ms. Manda, to come up with a procedure of how we're going to proceed with participation between us and PLD, and also to come up with an intergovernmental agreement on both the Laurel Ridge Levee and also Bluff Swamp project, and that we will present to the PLD for their acceptance. We decided, the administration decided that it's best that if there is a project that we need, we present that request to PLD through one of their commissioners, somebody from Ascension Parish. They vote on it. If they're willing to agree to participate, we then issue a memorandum of understanding how that participation would be. Once we agree to that, we write up an intergovernmental agreement laying out the details of the project and the responsibilities of each party. We give that, you vote for it, and the PLD votes for it, and then we got a project. And that we think that that's a better system to go by. It's laid out in paper, the participation, but it's something that you as a commission presents to the Puncturing Levee Board Commission,
Right.
Requesting them to assist us.
So where are we on that process today?
We are writing the intergovernmental agreement now. Ms. Manna and I finally got the last bit of information I need for Laurel Ridge Levee. So I will be getting with Ms. Manna this week, and then she'll be, starting that process. And at that time, I'm going to should be finishing up on the Bluff Swamp intergovernment outline of what we need in that agreement. It goes to Ms. Manna, and she writes up the intergovernmental agreement. And then both times it comes back to you for approval before we present it to them.
Thank you so much.
I'm sure, Terry, you want to know when you can meet with your folks, huh?
Yes. But my folks are patient and long-suffering, so they are fine with whatever time it takes within reason to get this project off the ground, and certainly in the spirit of cooperation with the PLD.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. President.
Yes, we had a very good meeting at the Capitol, and I think that a lot of good things are going to come out of that. Basically, one of the things we talked about was Frog Bayou, and certainly we wanted to look at that project. They were looking at a project that would have been a joint project with Iberville Ascension and PLD to dredge Alligator Bayou and to change the locks at Alligator Bayou, and that's going to take a long time to get permitted. And when I discussed it with them, they agreed that the Frog Bayou project would be a standalone project and that we would go forward with it. They've also agreed to discuss with us, there's 40 acres back there, that possibility that can be transferred to Ascension Parish that would help us also with the project, and also to maybe create an intergovernmental agreement between the two, MOU between the two, and if we need property that they could utilize their expropriation rights, quick take appropriation, to get the project off the ground quickly. So anyway, that's kind of on that project. On the Laurel Ridge project, I think Bill met with them and did some value engineering, and hopefully the cost went down from 24 million, looks like about 19 now. Is that correct? So hopefully we can get it down a little bit more than that, and they've agreed to pay quite a bit of the engineering, all the engineering actually, and surveying and geotech and those type things. So we did make up some ground there also. So those are some of the things that we discussed. And then Ms. Manda also has been meeting with Mr. Poirier, who's the attorney, and trying to come up with some other ideas to create some projects and some MOUs that we can work together on. So overall, it went well.
Well, on behalf of the folks back there, I want to thank you, Tommy, very much for the effort that you put forth to work through the legislative process to get them to this place. Bill, thank you very much. Randy, appreciate it. A lot of collaborative effort went into getting us to this place where we can tell those folks back there that there is a day in sight that this project will get underway. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess what we tried to do in this move is basically, be clearer up front of our expectations and the needs of Ascension Parish.
Sure.
Even though some improvements will be a regional type thing, because the water don't know the parish lines, but I mean, we definitely want to, we have been for about the last 4 or 5 months, expressing the expectations and needs of Ascension Parish and need for participation based on our contributions and, that business.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that? Thank you, Mr. Rue. Right now, we'll move on to agenda item number 7, East Ascension Drainage District Policy and Procedure, memo number 4, Off-Road Bridge Construction Policy and Procedure, and Louisiana Attorney General's opinion. Madam Secretary, do we have a speaker on this? Okay. Heather. Huh? All right. Generally, we let the speakers speak first. So at this time, I'd like to recognize Mr. Ronnie and Miss Victoria Bourgeois. Ronnie and Vic, just tell us where you live at.
I live in Sorrento on Brittany Street, and right back of Richard Wagersbeck, and Don Alexander, and Tom Morgan. My property joins theirs, and I have 18 acres of land, and Conway travels my whole length of my property from one end to the other end, and the access to my property is crossing over Conway. And the problem we've been having is we can't get across the bridges and falling in the canal for the last 5 years. And through the time we tried to get it worked with the parish, because they were maintaining the bridge. I lived there 26 years, and they've been maintaining that bridge for the last, I said, 20, since 1928. 78, when the bridge was put in. And the thing is, they maintained it, kept it up. I call up the waterworks, and they would come out and fix bad boards on it. The last time they came out, they changed some bottom trestles on the main run, and now it just got to where those that they had left were worse shape than those they had changed, and the bridge is actually falling in. So if that does fall in, your pumping station over there in Conway Bayou will have a sludge where that bridge fall down with trash and won't pump like it's supposed to pump. And I've seen the problem already, 'cause I took the debris out several times. The parish came out a couple of times and did it. Used the backhoe and pushed it out, and we picked a lot of them, put on the land. Now, they all had the Corps of Engineers, or somebody came out there, in fact, FEMA, came out there and cleaned the canal out, okay? They came on my bridge, couldn't cross it. So that meant they had to come on my property with their machine and finish the rest of the bayou, which was no problem, let them do it. But my problem now is the bridge is going down big time. It dips about 2 foot on one side. The other side is just, it's a matter of time before it falls in. It's like diagonal across from one another where the beams are going. And we had,
Still the access to our property.
and that's the only access to my property. Several years ago, I've talked to some people, and they came up with a review of saying that we're gonna fix it. They got a permit and all the stuff they need. I required everything, I give it to them, and they turn around and say, look, we're gonna fix it. All of a sudden, they changed their mind. They can't do it no more. Because y'all said there's something come up, they don't do it anymore. But that legally, that should be a grandfather locked in, because we agreed to that since 1978. Once I pay for the bridge, the parish are gonna maintain it. And that's what happened. It's not working.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Shakespeare.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And this is in my district, and I know Ronnie and I have been discussing this for years. It's something that certainly we don't want to be in a position where a homeowner can't get across his property, and it's a bridge that in the past we've been maintaining somewhat. However, there are some changes that have come across from state law that do limit us on some of these situations. Some of these situations we are not happy about, and so therefore, this particular one, I have to defer to legal as to what's legal that's allowed for us to do. And so we defer to administration and our legal department. So at this time, I would like to get what is legal and what we are allowed to do.
Thank you, sir.
And that being said, we can proceed from there. Because certainly we do want to help the homeowner.
Mr. Rue, you want a summary, and before we talk to legal about what you'd hand out?
I can, again, I can go back in a little bit of history on this thing. Back, I think in 2005, we received an Attorney General's opinion, basically saying that if it's not if it's more of a public need, if it's not a public need, we're not allowed to spend money on anything. If it's, and that's something the attorney can comment on, but basically that changed our attitude, and we went through the council at the time, and they discussed it and wrestled with the problem because they knew of all the bridges we had, and all the requests that was coming into them, so they were pretty much in the middle, just like you are right now. So they made us come up with a policy, which basically said, look, the policy is that we'll go in there, and this is something that's adopted by the council back then, that we'll come in and do repair work of the bridge and get it functional again. At which time the owner had to take full responsibility for the bridge forever and take total liability of the bridge forever. Get us out of the bridge business. A new bridge that, and we've got a second opinion that the first policy changed somewhat. It said, the new policy after that second opinion basically said, look, all new bridges, you have to have a cost share. You put up half the money, we'll put up half. We'll get, that's if you have to completely rebuild the bridge. You put up half, we put up half, and then after it's over with, you take full responsibility, maintenance, and liability of the bridge, and we're out of it, totally. So we've been working under that policy for the last number of years. The problem with this particular bridge is the ownership of the land that the bridge crosses. When we came down, we looked at it. We didn't think it would be much of a problem to repair it. Did some minor repairs on it. It did not work. We got a full deterioration of the bridge. Now it completely has to be rebuilt. Number one, the owner could not afford to cost share on it. But more important than that, the property owner of the bridge is not, as we found out, it's not Mr. Bourgeois. The land that when you approach the bridge is somebody else's property. As soon as you get on the other side, it's somebody else's property. Then you enter into Mr. Bourgeois' property. When we said part of our procedure that the owner of the property had to take full responsibility and liability of the bridge, those people said, no way. We did not want to get involved, and we weren't going to pay part of it, and we will not take liability of the bridge because we don't need it. So that is where we kind of backed off, and based on legal opinion, it wasn't too much that we could do.
Yes, real quick, Bill. We got a copy of the Attorney General's opinion right here in front of us, but we did have a point where we said that we would rebuild, we would fix the bridge or fix it up and then give it to the owner, and it's theirs for life, right?
But
Okay.
the key word of that is owner.
Okay. All right. So now one thing that Mr. Bourgeois told me is that, because I've been dealing with Ronnie for a couple of years on this also, and I've been knowing him for a lot of years, he's a good guy, is the fact that he has like 100-year servitude to cross when he bought the land, and that was the only access to the land. You have another landowner that's back there, that's the only access to his land also. And I think the land may have been sold at some point. So what are you saying is that the owner that owns the land, not Ronnie, not Mr. Bourgeois, but the owner that owns the land.
That the bridge is on, the approach to and from.
Okay, so in other words, would it be possible for the owner of the land, whomever that may be, that we fix the bridge and give it to that owner for the rest of his life?
He had to take full liability of it.
That's what I'm
And he
asking.
had to take full maintenance responsibility.
Right.
Because you see, that's
One-time
attached to the
deal.
property.
Is that one-time deal still viable?
He still has to pay half.
Well, we can't, we got legal issues with it too. Again, was our policy
Yeah.
that we're trying to work under.
So we ran into legal issues on that policy.
But again, the whole purpose of the property owner taking responsibility, this is a legal document that is attached to the property. That whoever buys the property 10, 15, 100 years from now, this stays on the property. their
Yes.
responsibility to maintain it.
Understand.
So it had to be attached to the property, and the property owner got to agree to that.
Well, I don't understand why the property owner, I don't know him, but I mean, I don't understand why the property owner that owns the property across
Well,
there,
one
other than
thing,
Mr.
it's
Bourgeois,
a
wouldn't want
it's
the
a
bridge.
responsibility, I mean, a liability, if somebody crosses it and
Oh,
gets
okay.
hurt,
It's a liability
that
issue on the owner.
that don't even use it is responsible to cover all damages.
Well, if the owner would accept fixing the bridge and taking life, and then possibly Mr. Bourgeois could sign some waiver that.
That's a legal issue that I don't want to really
Okay, I
comment on.
understand. I'm just trying to find a way out. Look, I'm just like Kent. We've got services that we deliver to people for 75 years, and then all of a sudden we can't. And I mean, that's life. I understand that. I understand the legal things. Ms. Manda, if you'd like to reiterate what we got in our Attorney General's opinion and what options we got now.
Well, from my understanding, this Attorney General opinion request was based largely on this particular situation, whether or not the district could erect bridges over existing public rights-of-way for the purpose of providing access to private property. And what the Attorney General said was that neither the Drainage Board nor the parish can expend public funds for the erection or maintenance of a bridge unless the bridge will bring about a public benefit and serve the interests of the public at large. And then they go on to say, and I know this was a question someone had asked me earlier, there is a provision in the third page, the first paragraph, that says, our office does not serve as a finder of fact and cannot determine what, if any, liability the parish would be exposed to if a private landowner failed to maintain the bridge, which provides ingress and egress to and from his private property. But even if you look at that, it's basically saying it might be okay in some circumstances for you to repair, but certainly not replace. So I think it does give us a little bit of leeway to do some minor repair work if there's a public benefit. But in this situation, I think it's pretty clear. If you have a piece of property where only one or two people live on and they're the only people using the bridge, you can't use public money to replace it. So.
Okay. Mr. Sadler.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Rue, the person who owns the land is not Mr. Bourgeois, right?
Unless he just purchased it lately.
Okay, and so
no.
the bridge is located on, just a point of information for myself, is that landowner developed that property? Or you said he doesn't have any, didn't care one way or another whether the bridge is repaired?
The last documents that we saw actually had two people own a portion of from the Brittany Street to the bridge. At that time, I haven't reviewed it in the last couple of years, had two people own that and a portion of it, and then one person owned the other side of it. So
what you're saying is.
at one time, they had three people that
So the
owned.
landowner does at least have an interest per se to be sure that those people can still get across the bridge and access the property or not?
The other person actually has access from the main highway. The Alexanders has
the bridge,
access
okay.
through there.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Kazza.
No disrespect to the Attorney General. This is the most incredible amount of doublespeak I have ever seen. I mean, just in a matter
Right.
of two paragraphs, there are two different statements. And, I find it interesting that at one point it says, if you'll follow with me in the second paragraph about midway, therefore, if the district determines that constructing or repairing bridges on private property is for the benefit of the parish drainage system rather than the private landowner, then the district has the authority to spend public funds for that purpose. If the district chooses to make this expenditure, it must also ensure that the benefit to be received by the parish will be proportionate to the public funds spent. Next paragraph. Based on the foregoing, it is the opinion of this office that public funds cannot be used.
It
They
cannot.
just said they could.
Yeah, only
Now they say they
if
can't.
it's for the purpose, primarily for the purpose of drainage or purpose of the public as a whole. That's the intent, I think Lindsay can.
Yeah, it's not for access for private landowners. It's for a public benefit drainage, public use of a roadway system. That's what they mean when they say we can do it if there's a public benefit.
But I would argue, I mean, I'm no lawyer, that our drainage system is enhanced by the presence of these bridges that are in good condition. It
We
is certainly
never-
not beneficial for a bridge to be falling into our drainage system.
I can give you an example. We did a study a couple years ago of the 300 or so bridges that we have off-road. Maybe a third of them, a third, is actually used 3 or 4 times a year by our tractors to cross. And in most cases, even those bridges can be accessed, if necessary, from another source. There are very few bridges that absolutely is necessary by drainage personnel on a regular basis to use. And again, it's mostly 4 times a year, if that many. And again, a lot of bridges we never use. Most of the bridges we never use at all.
But our citizens do. And if Mr. Bourgeois is on his property and he has a heart attack, and he can't get to, and the EMS can't get to him, where does our liability lie? If we have ceased to maintain a bridge that we built there.
We discussed that with the Attorney General back in 2005 at a meeting that we had. Their suggestion at the time was for us to determine exactly which bridges were predominantly public use bridges, which one were private use, make the offer to the property owners to take full responsibility of the bridges. If they disagreed, to pull the bridges up. That was suggested by Attorney General in 2005.
Well, the Attorney General obviously doesn't have much contact with people in
Well,
this
again, we
situation, and
just-
I understand that.
That's all we can do.
But it's our responsibility to try to take care of the citizens of Ascension Parish. And while I'm concerned, we have funds in drainage, and I certainly don't want to necessarily be in the bridge building business, but I just think when you can't get a straight answer, then perhaps we as a Board of Commissioners need to find a way to make this happen, or we need to pull them all up.
Yeah.
You know, whichever the case may be, but then we have to understand that there's going to be some liability associated with that. I don't know which level of liability I would want to be more responsible for.
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
Bill, on our policy for off-road bridge construction, on item 1, we list 4 items there that gives us the idea of, or gives us what we will take care of. And then on number 2, there's several things that are there. Is that basically what governs whether or not we will repair those bridges or
well,
maintain them?
Again, this was written after the 2005 opinion. It was amended, and I didn't, when I grabbed this, I grabbed the old memo. It was amended to, number 1, existing bridges and other crossings will be repaired and or replaced that was crossed out, no longer part of the new policy. And also on 2C, it says the bridge or other crossing will be installed and paid for in full by the drainage district at one-time basis. That was crossed out. And basically, we functioned under the rest of the conditions. And number 3 on the second page, that all new requests, or at least new bridges, which means the full construction of a bridge, will be considered only as part of a cost share agreement, but with the same conditions and considerations as stated above. So again, we went back down to that. Those other few phrases, sentences were crossed out based on the new opinion that came in this last opinion.
After this was written up, did we go back and identify the bridges that we would maintain? Or we use readily and
We do it on a case-by-case basis when a request comes to us for repair.
I think that may be leading to some of our animosity, if you will, towards our policies, because, and I don't have an answer for you right now, but I think if you run into an issue of where we had a bridge on this gentleman's property, I don't know the whole situation, but we built a bridge 15, 20 years ago, and it's doing fine, and we passed this thing 7 years ago, 2 years or 3 or 4 years after that bridge was placed, and all of a sudden the bridge is starting to fall apart, and so he comes to us. You know, we adopted this policy 15 years ago that they don't know anything about. And so the last time they dealt with this body, or the parish as a whole, everything was hunky-dory. They were going to get the bridge taken care of, you know, replaced or what have you. And so I wonder if maybe we don't need to take some other step of making some kind of notification to the bridge owners as to where we are with this thing, so we don't run into a situation to where we're 4, 5, 10, 15 years out before they actually come back to this and revisit this to clarify it a little bit more plain language. Some of it I'm reading through it again. It's been a while since I looked at it, and I'm trying to make sure I understand it, and I don't know that I really do right now. Maybe simplify this somewhat, if possible, to help those folks out and understand why we're doing it. And I agree with everybody up here. We'd like to help the gentleman out. If we got a legal opinion that's telling us, no, we can't, that's not something we like to hear. It's not something we want to do, but unfortunately, that's the case we have to deal with, because part of the other problem that we have, as much as this gentleman has, and I'm sure every one of us can go out there and point to some area in our district where we have these issues, and people would like for us to come, and if we take this bridge in and do what the gentleman would like for us to do, we're going to have people knocking on our doors to get other bridges repaired, so we have to be very careful with that from a legal aspect. So just as a suggestion, I don't know, like I said, if we might want to change the way we're addressing this with the bridge owners, and maybe kind of clarify this a little bit better to where it's a little bit easier understandable to myself and others.
And we have, just as a reminder, we have been using this policy and mandating our new bridge cost share. We have a number of people that cost share with us on bridges. If you go back now and reverse the policy, I think you've got a little bit of a problem. Some of these landowners coming back to us and say, wait a minute, I participated, now you change your policy, y'all building free bridges. I want my money back for what, what I paid for mine.
I'm not saying change it to that point. I'm saying clarify it to where it's a little bit simpler to understand.
And notify the public.
And notify the people.
Or the bridge owners.
Or the bridge owners that, what the policy is, and what, where we're going to be, to where if they come up to us, I know it's happened to us several times since we've been in office, that we've had this issue and we discussed it. And so there's a better way of doing this to where people understand why we're doing it and what the reason for the policy that we have here. It's not, I'm sure all of us up here would sit there, if we could, go out there and make repairs to these bridges or replace them as need be, but unfortunately, because we have to follow our legal advice and make, so we don't get in trouble with that kind of stuff, that we owe the public the information of making sure that it's palatable as possible, or they understand it to the point of where we can legally do what we can do for them.
I can say that the council in 2005 had the exact same conversation and discussion that you're having right now. Right. And the administration, just like this administration, is caught in between of, listening to legal advice and trying to accommodate the wishes of the council. And that's why this policy was brought out. It's not perfect, but it was a compromise to try to get us further along. And in fact, if we call, to account for it by auditor or state government or AG or whatever, we have some basis to justify our
and by no means am I pointing fingers to say that anybody that's within parish government wants to do this to anybody else or not do anything for them. I mean, we're all here to work for folks and get it all done as best as possible. We all have to follow the same rules, and what I'm trying to accomplish is hopefully something that makes it a little bit better and easier for all of us across the board.
I just want to point out one more thing that Bill did mention a little bit, but the fact is this is the third time of this coming up, twice since I've been elected. This is the second time, and at least 3 different lawyers, representing us, looking at it. And by law, if we get an opinion from our lawyer, and definitely got an opinion from the Attorney General, that if we choose as a body to go against that, then we're on our own, okay? But So,
Right.
Mr. Shake Snyder, real quick.
Well, I mean, we're in a little conundrum, and this was put out February 15, 2005. We've been investigating this since that time. One of the first times Ronnie and I had talked. It's been trying to get dealt with for a long time. And since that time, I think, Bill, you've had come back to us with 2,700 bridges or something that we have in the parish. I forgot the number.
Well, actually, it's more in the neighborhood of about 300, 350 bridges that's out there that's actually being used.
Right, but we have a large number of bridges, and then you got it down to a number that we are,
Less than a third is something that we can justify
okay.
using.
What we need as commissioners is we need a list of bridges that parish administration deems is necessary for operation of parish business. That this is it. This is what we need to do what we do, and that's what we go by. I would like to see that happen as soon as possible. So
I
that
think
we
he had
not-
already presented that about a year and a half ago.
Yeah, we had a few
And,
years
you know, we had a few blurred lines on it, but
But we don't.
it's kind of the ones that are used the most on a regular basis.
And that's where the problem comes in. If, in a lot of these cases even, if we looked, we can find another access. It might be a little bit more, a longer access to get to that property, but we can find access without crossing. And then you get into the real legal issue of, is it more of a benefit to the public or more of a benefit to the landowner to have that structure there? 100% of the cases, 100% of the cases, is more of a benefit to the landowner, much more of a benefit to the landowner than to the drainage department to have a bridge there.
With our guidelines that we have, which meets Attorney General's opinion, that's why we did that. Problem we have on this particular one is that the landowners are not the homeowners that need to use the crossing. And there's two different landowners before you get to it. No one is willing to sign off on this. And so, unless we can get the landowner to sign off on it, I don't see how we can make it work legally. We do have a provision that on a one-time offer, if the landowner signs off on it, we can repair the bridge and give it over to the landowner, and that's it. That's the policy, and that met the legal aspect. This is a crazy situation where Mr. Bourgeois, who owns the property, who accesses it, does not own the land that's under the bridge. And it puts us in a legal situation where if we decide to do something on that we are going against this opinion. And also, there's opinion that by the drainage district, we do have an obligation to, if the drainage canal, if it does not ensure proper drainage, it says right here, the district has the obligation to remove at the cost of the landowner the bridge which obstructs the drainage. Additionally, it is the obligation of the landowner to ensure that a bridge built across a drainage canal does not obstruct drainage. So we're dealing with the landowner that does have that obligation. And so we're in a situation, unless we can convince the landowner to change his mind or somebody else can purchase the property, I just need a lawyer to tell me it's okay, because we would like to do this. I think it's something that everybody up here would like to do, but we can't do something that's against our lawyers' responsibility. And
Mr. Shake Snyder, since it's in your district and with Mr. Rue, you know, I'm willing to try to do anything we can. Can you, we apparently got a different landowner than we might have had in 2005 on one of the pieces of land. And I don't know if it's the last time that anybody approached the landowners on the bridges to, you know, try to work this out. Would you mind checking that out?
yeah, I'll be glad to. I think Ronnie and I talked. The problem is one of the landowners is not too amenable to. Yes. Well, I mean,
Look at it
as
this
chairman,
way.
I'm sorry.
The landowner
Yes.
joining my property, not agreed when I showed them the application we had filled out, that what they're required to do. And once they seen that, anybody at all with any kind of knowledge can just drop out and say, I don't own the land, I give it to the parish. That's what I was told, that y'all had received it from them, that they own it, okay? So I said, well, what am I supposed to do? That's when I went back and finally got a hold of you and tried to get something going, which was 2005. But I've been doing with this since 2004, when they came fix the bridge the first time. But then again, it's been a little bit before that, like about 1996, 94, they came and they fixed it. And since then, I've removed a lot of trash. That is the main drainage of Gonzales. That go all the way to Burnside. I mean, all the way to, the Bardens. And that drains by the airport and everything. Now, that thing was to block up, but all the wood they had when they removed it, when FEMA took up, it was a lot of wood they pulled out of there, and that's gonna come again, which we know for sure, trees that fell back in the bayou. And that blockage is gonna be hitting again. Now, the parish come and remove them. What they did, they took the backhoe and moved them. They actually got on the bridge. Now, if I was to buy this bridge and repair it myself, they'd have to come do the same thing on my property, which you wouldn't allow, because the law wants you to come on my property. By law, you couldn't come on my property. Am I right or wrong? Unless I signed an agreement. Am I right? That's what I did before. I signed an agreement that the parish can come and cut grass even. And nobody's aware of this, but that's the way it's been going. I'm in a bind, gentlemen. I can't get to my property. Once this bridge is condemned, that's it. And I talked to the landowners that own the back of it, that y'all talk about maybe putting a road in. They will not give me a right of way. There's 3 people involved.
Thank you, Ronnie. Appreciate it.
I wish y'all please help me. I'm in a bind. I caught a heart attack. I was lucky. I was in my truck going to the hospital. Otherwise, the ambulance couldn't come get me. That's how bad it's getting, you know? And I appreciate if y'all can come up with some kind of agreement, whatever it takes to make it work, where I can have this access to my property. I mean, really, the property shouldn't have been sold without access to the property, and it was, because the parish was gonna maintain the bridge when I bought it. Then Valentine and them had agreed to all that. Look, you got access to the property, you got the bridge, the parish put it in. And, I mean, I'm blind, but when I first bought it, I didn't know, just like y'all don't know some of the things that's going on. I wanna do it legal, much as I can, and I expect y'all to do the same thing.
Thank you,
Thank
Ronnie.
y'all for your time, I appreciate it, and see what y'all can do.
All right. Yes, Mr. Satterley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Bill, 2 questions, and I think that based on how you answered them, maybe one for Lindy Manda. Has the parish done any repairs on this bridge in question since 2007?
Since 7, I don't think so. And if it was, it may be a board or a
And I'm
nail.
using that date because of your testimony that
Right.
the parish council came up with this, quote, policy. By the way, is that a policy in writing or just a feel we have?
No, it was passed by the first policy, the original policy passed by the Drainage Commission in 2005.
Okay, but if we haven't done any repairs on it, then my second question would be, and I think the answer would be no, we haven't as a result issued any letter one way or another to the real property owner in this bridge case or to Mr. Bourgeois, right?
Actual letter, probably not. Conversation, verbally, they were notified and talked to.
All right, then number 3, Ms. Manda, as a litmus test, what is the legal definition of public at large?
It's gonna be more, I can tell you, it's more than one
More than those
property.
2 people.
Yeah, it's more than those 2.
A good
I mean,
bit
it's
more.
an easy, that,
Accessible to everybody, kind of.
it could be a subdivision.
So whether we
you
like it
know.
or not up here, we are bound by a law that's being
Unfortunately, yes.
interpreted
It-
by the Attorney General, even though it's an opinion, it could be wrong as is stated in the opinion.
Well-
And to go against it, I think a couple of my councilmen have said, and I would agree, we would have to bear the consequences if we are shown to be wrong.
Yes, it's an indictable offense to spend public money on private property for no public benefit.
An
It's
indictable
very serious,
offense.
Yes, it's serious.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Todd Lambert.
Bill, what would be the cost just to repair this, or replace this bridge?
Well, you
roughly?
can't, number
I know
one,
it's roughly, I know
you
you.
wouldn't replace it like it is now, because it's a huge bridge. It's a double lane almost. But single lane, you're looking in the $50,000 range, at least, maybe 60,000.
And we don't have documentation. I kind of heard Mr. Bourgeois say something about the parish. He thought that the parish was going to agree to take over this bridge when he bought that property. None of that's any documentation nowhere.
No, sir.
Please,
He has a servitude agreement. That's a private, that's a civil matter, and I don't know what was in his servitude agreement, if the landowner represented something to him that was or was not a fact. I don't know, but it is a civil matter between those two parties.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I think a couple of years ago, I'd actually request, we had different legal representation in, but I'd asked for, to go forward to the Attorney General, get a relook at this, and, we're out here in public, I'm in front of God and everybody, it's not graft and corruption, we got some people that we're just trying to help, and I think that's what we're elected for to start off with, but, so we didn't get much change in the opinion, I just want to let you know, 2 years ago from the original opinion.
We'll try to be creative in trying to find a solution to this and a report next month as to what we found, what we can, options
I
that we can
appreciate that.
that.
You work
that's
with
all
him,
we can
Mr.
do.
Rue?
Yes, sir. And I'd just like to say, if there, in all our cases, if there's a gray area, we benefit on the side of the landowner in most cases. I mean, we try to help everybody out, but our fiduciary responsibility to protect the parish president and protect y'all. And so we're not gonna enter into something that knowingly might get you in trouble. And so we fight it every time.
We're not going to ask you to, sir. Thank you very much. Yes, Ms. Cazzo.
At the risk of seeming obtuse, I've got to go back to the fact that this statement also says, if, however, the parish determines that it must make repairs on private bridges to avoid liability for the parish, it has the authority to do so. But the parish or the district must also determine that the expenditure of public funds for that purpose is not primarily for the benefit of the landowner and must not spend more public funds than necessary to limit its liability. I think that gives you some gray.
It doesn't give you much gray. It doesn't. You can remove the bridge and eliminate your liability. I mean,
Okay.
and that's what they've told us in the past, remove the bridge.
That's the easy way out.
And that's another reason in our policy, we decide if we can go in there and do some minor repairs, make it passable. If they go with the other conditions of accepting responsibility thereafter, we'll go in there and make some repairs on it, make it functional. But then it's yours. You take it, once it completely goes out, it's after this, it's yours. But this is not minor repairs. This is a full replacement.
I see. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And thank everybody's patience. And I'd like to move on to agenda item number 8, approval to increase budget, HMGP 1603N-005-0003 pilot reconstruction project in the amount of $30,752 and authorize Parish President Tommy Martinez to execute all documents. Can you
We just
give us a
received
summary
more
on
money
this?
from the grant, and we want your authorization to proceed with the acceptance of this
So
extra
moved,
funds.
Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Cazzo. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. We'll move on to agenda item number 9. Approval to add Arthur Shakespeare LLC to the contract dirt haulers list.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Dempsey Lambert, second by Mr. Todd Lambert. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. Before we move on to number 10, I got a request for a short announcement that we have the Household Hazardous Materials Collection Day on Saturday, May 10th, 9 to 1 at Lamar Dixon. The materials accepted is a limit of 5 automobile tires, cars and golf cart batteries, cell phones and batteries, fluorescent bulbs, paint thinner. You can bring almost anything over there, and we'd appreciate it. Now, the materials not accepted include explosives and radioactives and stuff, so I'm not going to read that whole disclaimer, but but anyway, look, let's pick up a little garbage somewhere and the stuff that we got hanging around the house, and let's go bring it over there. And once more, we'll move to agenda item number 10.
Motion adjourned, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Mr. Todd Lambert to adjourn. We have a second by Mr. Benny Johnson. Any discussion? No opposition? We are adjourned.